All right, we're going to move on to some serious news now. Calls to mental health hotline Beyond Blue have skyrocketed by 60% during this COVID-19 crisis, and experts warn that it's only going to get worse. So what if there was a radical way to help ease the pain? Speaking of pain, Tommy Little investigates.
America's public enemy #1 is drug abuse.
When psychedelic drug research was banned in the US in the 70s, other countries, including Australia, followed suit. However, over the past decade, research into these powerful medicines is making a comeback.
Yes, psychedelic drugs have been used and abused recreationally, but make no mistake, that's not what we're talking about here.
This story is about using them in controlled conditions as medicine. Medicine to heal those who need it the most.
Just before we begin, what you're about to see isn't for everyone. We're a long way from a cure yet.
So, what the hell are psychedelics?
Psychedelic substances create profound alterations in the state of consciousness.
There are many different kinds of psychedelics, but the main psychedelics being studied both overseas and in Australia are MDMA and psilocybin,
which is the key psychoactive ingredient in magic mushrooms.
In clinical trials the world over, these drugs have shown huge promise in dramatically reducing symptoms of PTSD, depression, alcohol, tobacco and drug addiction, OCD, and the end-of-life anxiety felt by the terminally ill. And often, it's not just a treatment, it's a cure.
I feel like I have more connections in my brain.
Psychedelics work by affecting a section of the brain called the default mode network, or DMN.
What that means functionally is that what used to be the default operational modes of the brain are now being disrupted. And instead, new neural pathways are being created. New networks are being forced to be found.
Mind Medicine Australia, repped here by Dr. Prash and Tania, foresees a surge of mental anguish for Aussies in the wake of COVID-19. So they're pushing hard for the legalisation of psychedelic medicine-assisted psychotherapy sessions.
Basically, the patient takes either MDMA or psilocybin and has a good old chat with a medical professional.
There's the initial screening and building rapport with the therapist. Then there's the medicine sessions, and then there's the integration sessions, where the patients actually use these treatments to integrate back into their lives, their work, their families.
Sessions like these are only happening in Australia in clinical trial settings, and there are caveats.
We're supportive of proper scientific trials. The big issue with them has been around safety and whether or not they actually work. Although there's a lot of claims made, the evidence is only promising. The psychiatry world has been filled with sometimes next big things that have gone wrong.
The AMA told us they support authorised clinical trials. But Mind Medicine Australia want urgent changes like the rescheduling of MDMA and psilocybin to Schedule 8 class drugs, meaning easier access by practitioners.
Now, I know what you're thinking. It seems extreme. But then again, so is the pain that some people are feeling every single day.
My name is Jong Harrop. I served in Iraq, and at the end of my tenure, I commanded 70 soldiers. What I went through, I was subject to a violent sexual assault while I was in the military. I was given a diagnosis of PTSD, major depressive disorder with anxiety, in and out of mental hospitals, psychologists, psychiatrists, medication. After a couple of suicide attempts, I promised my ex that I wouldn't kill myself because of my children, but I'd give it up on life. And the system couldn't help me, so I did something extreme. I turned to psychedelic therapy. I travelled on my own all the way to the Amazon, and there's people there that work with plant medicines. And I had this profound breakthrough where I just let go of all of that deeply held pain. I'm so grateful for the help. And I want to continue these treatments, but I can't because they're not available here.
Australia has one of the highest rates of antidepressant use in the world. And with the impacts of COVID-19 on our mental health only just starting to bite, that's likely to increase.
We owe it to all of the people who've tried multiple failed treatments to offer treatments that are going to work.
Every Australian deserves the chance to heal.
When they're really proven and we know they're safe, then I'll be excited.
I would encourage Australians to be patient, to support the clinical research that's underway, and to not try and do this at home.
People get really fearful of this stuff. We saw the same thing with cannabis and its use, and people really taking a long time to come around, even though there were people in pain who were seeing massive results. And I think with these things, that people's default position is to think about people at Burning Man off their face, kind of thinking, oh, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
This is about a controlled environment. People say it's more to do with the therapist, and the medication is a part of that. But the results are incredible. In some of the MDMA trials in the US, 68% of participants after just a few sessions said that they no longer met the criteria for PTSD. And these were people who were absolutely non-respondent to other treatments.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And similar kind of things with the psilocybin as well. And you have to open your eyes if the research is saying that there might be an effect for people who have something that could cripple them for their whole life if they don't get this kind of treatment.
And obviously it is so important not to try this at home and not to take it into your own hands. But when it's done with this quality control, we're told that these treatments are non-toxic and that there is, you know, so many benefits to it, and that this, in the way that they're trialling them now, it's not addictive. So, I mean, it's early days, but, you know, you've got to be hopeful.
Often the politicians are the barrier here because they see it really simplistically as drugs, no drugs. Yeah, you've got to, as you have both said, it's the clinical trials, let medicine run its course, and then the evidence will be in the proof. Yeah. Well, if this story has raised any issues for you, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14. Stick around, there's only more still to come on the Sunday Project.